So my name is Cynthia Romanowski. I am the convener for the ACRL Technical Services Interest Group. And today we are pleased to have two presenters, Joy DuBois and Jennifer Cully. And I will let them further introduce themselves. My incoming convener is Marina Morgan. And you can see her, at least I can see her in the lower right-hand corner. So we do have everybody muted and everybody's audio, video, or video also turned off. Please use the chat for any questions you have. And presenters, would you prefer, we're gonna monitor the chat references and we'll try to do 5 minutes, so to keep the 20 minutes, and we'll do 5 minutes of QA just for that presenter, and then we'll go into the next presenter. I did allow a little bit of extra time, so please try to keep to the 20 minutes for the presentation, and so we have the 5 minutes for questions, and then if there's a little extra room, we're still good. I don't think our session's going to end exactly at 1, but let's try to aim for that. And this is going to be recorded, and we will post it for ACRL. So anybody who was not able to register can view it as well. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and with that, I'm going to have Joy take over.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. My name is Joy DuBois, and I'm the Special Collections Cataloger at Mississippi State University. Now, today, I'm not going to talk about some rare book found in our archives, or some long ago forgotten manuscript. No, today, I'm going to go the opposite route and talk about technology. More specifically, virtual reality, or VR for short. Now, VR has had sort of a rocky history, and many institutions may be waiting to add it to their collections. But some, including mine, are making VR programming available for their faculty and patrons. So, like many presentations, this one began with a project. A while back, my assistant dean came to me and asked me to catalog our collection of purchased virtual reality programming. I was elated to work on the project, but it brought to light several questions like, why should these materials be cataloged? What are the problems of cataloging virtual reality programming? And most importantly, how to actually do it. So before diving in any further, I want to talk about the VR collection at MSU. Our VR headsets are housed in the Cavs Mixed Media Center, which is part of the MaxSouth Digital Media Center. Normally, in a non-pandemic world, the center has the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, and the Oculus Quest available for patron use. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with these systems, both the Rift and the Vive need high-power computers to operate. The Quest, however, is a standalone headset, which does not require a computer to work. All of the headsets must be used in the Digital Media Center of the library and are not available for patron checkout. One primary reason for this is the headsets. The Oculus Quest ranges upwards of $400, and the Vive and the Rift can range upwards of $500. Also, the Rift and the Vive require high-power computers, which can be expensive. However, students and faculty can come in and use the systems and their programming during normal, non-COVID library hours. First, a little training is required, and patrons are good to go. The library also has a variety of programming for their systems, so users can enjoy all types of programs. So as I mentioned earlier, one question that was asked was why? Why should we catalog VR programs? The headsets cannot be checked out by users, and neither can the programming itself. They are strictly for in-house use. So why should they be cataloged at all? Now, some may remember it wasn't so long ago that there was a great discussion on whether video games should be cataloged as well. Many articles have been written justifying cataloging video games as an art form or a story. So what do video games have to do with VR? Video game companies have helped virtual reality grow. Sega announced a prototype for VR glasses at the Consumer Electronics Show in 1993. Also, Nintendo created Nintendo Virtual Boy in 1995. Both of these companies are gaming companies. Sega is the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Nintendo is known for gaming classics such as Mario, Zelda, and of course, Pokemon. Now you may be wondering why you've never heard of the Sega or Nintendo VR systems. Both of them were considered flops in their day. Indeed, Sega's never got past the prototype phase. Looking more recently than the 1990s, Sony, the creator of the PlayStation gaming console series, also has a VR system for the PlayStation 4. Gaming companies have long gone hand in hand with VR. In fact, VR programs are often considered and referred to as video games or VR games. So you could make the argument that since video games are being cataloged, so should VR programs as well. Now, for our specific collection, one major reason these programs were cataloged was to bring awareness to the collection by adding it to the OPAC. There are signs all over the library telling of our mixed media center and contain an image of a student wearing a VR headset. However, as I am sure some of you have witnessed, very few students bother to look up long enough to see signage. The programs needed to be searchable. So if a patron searched virtual reality in the catalog, they would find the programs, along with other materials. Also, each program needed appropriate and individual subject headings. That way, if someone was researching, for example, the Titanic, they would also find the Titanic VR experience along with the books and the articles. During the process, it was also discovered that only one person really had the overall mastered list of purchased programs that were available and what system they were on. So if he was out for the day, it was a bit of a guessing game on what program was available on which headset. When the programs were cataloged, they were given certain fields that were not included in the OCLC record. These fields outline not only which system the program was available for, but also a field that made it possible for patrons to find all of the VR materials. Besides the benefit of more patrons enjoying the VR, by making the programming more searchable, it also allows faculty and students to recommend programming for their various classes. VR has not only been used for entertainment, but for a great deal of training as well. With faculty and students making recommendations, the collection could grow. So with so many positive things in favor of VR cataloging, the project was ready to go. There was just some challenges standing in the way. So when I started looking at cataloging these programs, I realized that what I was actually looking at was cataloging programs for 3 different systems. The Vive and the Rift are 2 completely different systems created by 2 competing companies. And even though the Rift and the Quest share the Oculus name, they are different systems with different programming. Think the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Wii. Both are Nintendo, but have different programs. Programming for the Rift and the Vive is downloaded to a PC, and the programs you use depend largely on how good the computer is. With the Quest, it's all built in to the headset, but it has limited space to hold the programs. VR programming itself is its own unique beast. First, it's all digital with no physical format. However, unlike that of ebooks, e-audio, and other digital media, there is not a system for multiple people to check out the programming. There are many ways for patrons to check out e-materials. With VR, there is not a way to do this yet, and there may not ever be. Also, many times there is not a physical copy that matches the digital version like there may be for ebooks. For our systems, the programs were purchased through the Oculus Store, the Vive Store, or the Steam platform. Many of you may be unfamiliar with Steam. Steam is a platform created by the Valve Corporation, which allows people to sell and purchase video games and programming. To use the programs purchased on Steam, you must log into that account to use it. The majority of all of our VR programs were purchased on Steam because you can buy one program which can be used for both the Rift and the Vive. Programming for the Quest is currently not supported on Steam and only available through the Oculus Store itself. For those unfamiliar with Steam, it is similar to using an online store for ebooks, games, etc. You have to log into an account to purchase the material. Once you purchase the materials, it is linked to your account and you have a digital copy of the material, similar to purchasing an app on your phone. Now, even though the programming presents some interesting challenges, there are some silver linings to these clouds. Steam allows not only big companies to sell games, but smaller ones as well. This makes it possible for a wider variety of programs. For example, as of last Tuesday, there are almost 2,000 different VR programs on the Steam store. Steam also provides information that is necessary for different cataloging fields, such as system requirements, abstracts, and available languages. The last major benefit is patrons can create their own Steam accounts and buy VR programs they may want to play. For example, the library is not likely to buy the Wasteland survival game of Fallout 4 VR. However, a patron can buy the game, then come into the library, use the VR PCs to log into their Steam account, and then use our headsets to play it. Once their time is done, they log out of their account and the system is ready for the next person. However, Steam is not without its pitfalls as well. Yes, many of the pages do contain a great deal of information, but some less so. This is because many times developers are the ones who input the information. Also, many developers have early access games available for purchase on Steam. These are games that are not in their final format and are subject to change. Some stay in early access phase for months, some years, and some never even get out of it. This can be troubling to catalogers. If a certain game is purchased and it's an early access game, you have no idea when the game will be finalized. When it is finalized, will it be the same game with the same information that it had when you bought? So with the problems and the silver linings, the question remained, what is the best way to catalog VR programming? Which is an all digital material, and this slide messed up, I am so sorry, that is tied to an online store that can only be used in a library. How also do you catalog early access games on those or those with less information? How do you catalog games that are bundled together? Lots of questions. To answer these questions, let's finally get to the moment you've all been waiting for, the cataloging. So at the start of the process, I asked my coworker in the Digital Media Center who purchased the programs to send me a list. What I needed on this list was 3 things: the program name, the store it was bought from, and the system it was used on. With that list in hand, I was able to get started and I began to search OCLC. Now, to my immense astonishment, other institutions had begun to catalog some VR programming. Hooray! I'm not lost. However, the more I looked and researched, I discovered they ranged in quality. Some did not have particular fields, and almost none of them had very many subject headings outside of just virtual reality. So I took a look at the best ones and made sort of a template for myself of which fields to use and how the information should be entered. It was decided there would be 2 types of records: Steam records and records for the Oculus Quest. The reason for this was Steam records contain PC requirements and the Quest is a standalone system. Quest programming cannot be used with the Rift or the Vive, and as I mentioned before, Steam programming is not available for the Quest. Now, a great deal of this information I was able to pull right off of the store website page for the game. Most of this is just standard cataloging, title, publisher, and all that jazz. But some of it is a bit different. So let's first look at a record for the Quest. Now, this record is for a game called Super Hot VR, and yes, it is spelled in all caps. As you can see, most of this record is standard for computer file record. All of the VR records have the same call number with the title reflected and cuttered in subfield B. Now the 245 subfield C, you will see that I had the developer listed. Both Steam and the Oculus Store list the developers, creators, and publishers, but most do not necessarily list where they are located. Developers will sometimes have Steam pages, but most likely they just list other games that the creators have made. So to get the information for the 264 field, going to the developer's website or just Googling them may be your best bet. Now I did put in two 336 fields because both of them applied to this type of material. You will also see the 344, which is listed as digital. Also the 380 I have listed as video game. In the 500 field, I listed whether the game is single or multiplayer. There are VR games that are multiplayer only, so it is important to include this type of information. In the 521 field, I make sure to put in the rating, if it is listed on the store site. Not every game or program will have a rating, so for those that don't, this field isn't included. Now there are two 538 fields. One is for system requirements, whether PC requirements that are needed for the Rift or the Vive, or as you can see listed here, the space requirements needed for the Quest. The second 538 either lists the VR support available, or as you can see here, the Oculus Touch controllers are required. Next, the 520 includes the summary. Every record has a summary. At the end, you can see the link to the Oculus Quest store. Now we put the link here instead of an 856. The reason is people are less likely to try to download the game. Next, in the 546 field, you can see all the languages the program is available in, and these match the 041 field above. Next is the 588 field showing where I got the description and when I got it. And next are the subject headings. Every record had the subject headings for virtual reality and video games. After that, I tried to put in many a subject heading as I could to make locating the material as easy as possible. Lastly, I listed the developer or producer in the 710. Next, let's look at the Talos Principal VR. It is a game from the Steam store and has programming for both the Rift and the Vive. You can see the information is in pretty much the same format. The record has the same fields as the other one from the Quest, with just a few changes. You can see the 538s include the different systems that have VR support and also the PC requirements for the game. Now, the last record that we will look at very quickly is Apollo 11 HD, which was bought as part of a bundle and already had an OCLC record, but it needed to be updated. Since the title is part of a bundle, I added two varying titles, but after I uploaded the record into OCLC. You can see them with brackets of blue there. This is because you can buy the titles separately as a standalone, and unlike DVD bundles, the two are not tied together forever. You can have one without the other. So the two title notes were added just for our catalog. As for the record needing updated information, I simply updated the old information to that of the finalized game. Some fields needed to be updated, some did not. You can see the 588 note is updated to show that the record was updated and the date. Now, as I mentioned before, there were some fields that I did not upload to OCLC, but instead put them in before bringing the records into our catalog. Now let's look at the Talos record again. So for this record, we added the subfield H, or the GMD, to the 245, which says virtual reality. This does not follow with current RDA rules, so it was not added to the OCLC record. Next is the 245. This addition statement was edited for each Steam record before uploading it. It says quite simply, Steam platform and Oculus Rift or Vive. We wanted to make it very easy for patrons to determine what platform the program was for. Lastly, I added another 710. Now this 710 is a collection note and had an authority record created for it. By clicking on or searching the note, patrons would pull up the entire VR program collection and see all of the programs available. Again, making it easier for searching and allowing users to see all of the VR programs at one time. For years, VR has struggled to come into its own, and it has come a long way. However, with every step, there seem to be new challenges and hurdles. The same is true for cataloging. The more technology that is available, the more questions we have. Should something be cataloged? What are the problems and how do you catalog it are simply some of the most common questions. However, VR is not something to be feared. It is possible to modify current methods and tools and easily add these programs to our catalogs. By doing so, we can bring these hidden collections into the light. Thank you. And there are my references.
Great, thank you, Joy. We do have one question, and it comes from Adam. Is there a reason you didn't supply OLAC video game genre terms in the 655? The first 650s are really not correct because this is not about those topics. They belong in a 655.
Mostly, I looked at doing it and I tried to make it as easy as possible. And like I said, I pulled from other ones that had to make my template. So I based it off of that mostly. And this collection, like I said, will grow. It will change. We will change different things in it. But these were subject headings that we did find in other records. So they were somewhat correct. And we used them for that reason. If that helps.
Another question, have you cataloged augmented reality too?
We have not. We do have the HoloLens in the library, which is a mixture of VR and AR. We have not cataloged those programs yet. There are also several VR programs that are considered free. We did not catalog those. We cataloged the purchased ones. The free ones, they may not stay around. They may be demos, whatever, so we didn't catalog them. But if we do decide to catalog the AR, VR, the HoloLens programs, I would be more than happy to do that in the future. But no, that has not come about yet.
Did cataloging help raise awareness?
Well, funny thing about this, right when we put in the records for the cataloging, COVID hit. So because the headsets are over your face, people cannot check them out right now because of the pandemic. So it's kind of one of those things of it could bring awareness, but it was just really bad timing. In fact, some of these I put in February and I believe the beginning of March, right when COVID hit. So it was kind of bad timing. Any more questions?
Sorry about that. I had it on mute. Do you know of any movement towards getting video game and VR terms in the LCS genre form terms vocabulary? These terms are important and it would be great to have them in the GF vocabs.
I do not. I really don't, but it would be interesting to see and it would be something to push forward. Video games have been around a long time, and so it was quite interesting that only in the past few years they've really been cataloged, because video games like the Nintendo came around in the 1980s, I believe. So they've been around for a long time as a genre.
Okay. Do you have any, oh, someone answered they are not currently going to be accepted in the LCGFT. That is why OLAC has created a separate controlled vocabulary. That was from Adam. And he also included in the chat reference box a link to all panelists. The next question is, do you have any data on how users are looking for these? Do they ask for specific titles or do they just like browsing?
I do not have any specific data. Mostly because for a while, nobody really knew it was there. And I based this off of, like, we have welcome back days here at MSU, and a senior walked up to me and I explained to him the Digital Media Center and that we had VR, and he had been here for 4 years, and he was like, whoa, really? And he ran over there. And he had been in the library before, and we had the programs and the headsets for maybe a year or only a few months, but we had it for some time, and the signage had been out. He had just never paid attention to it. So again, we're hoping this brings awareness to it, but again, COVID hit, so kind of bad timing.
Is there a reason why you did not put your virtual reality collection in 655 tag so it is searchable?
To be honest, there is not really a reason. These were done, I did the first few of these. One of those was super hot, and we got together as a faculty and I showed them to them. So it is something I may put in the next few ones, but this was kind of like, okay, these are baby steps in beginning, and we done the ones that we currently have, but it's less than 50 of them. So whatever changes I do make will be relatively easy to go back and change.
Okay, I have 2 more questions and then we'll go to the next presenter. And like I said, we should have additional time at the end. So when we're done with the Q&A session for the next presenter, we'll continue to open it up to both presenters. So second to the last question, why did you choose computer file instead of visual materials?
I chose computer file because they are digital. And again, when I made the template, when I pulled up the ones others had done, all of them were computer files instead of visual materials, because these are downloadable programming. This is something you download on a computer. This is something on a computer. It lives there. So that was the primary reason. But I did look at doing visual, but it fit more along with computer programming.
And the final question, why was this VR collection created?
We originally had it at the CAVS Center. The CAVS deals, it's very hard to explain what CAVS is but the CAVS Center originally had it. They gave it to the library and they used it for virtual reality testing of cars. And so they gave it to us. And so we started creating and buying programs to bring more awareness. We have several programs that are currently used in classes. And so it kind of went from there, but it started off at CAVS and they generously gave it to us. And that's why it's called the CAVS Mixed Media Center.
Okay, I do see there's one more question, but we'll have that. Oh, that question was actually answered why she chose, oh, no, sorry. Oh, thank you. I have to scroll up. Okay, next presenter, thank you so much, Joy. Next presenter is Jennifer Cully.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you see that and hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. All right, hello, my name is Jennifer Cully. I am the lead acquisitions librarian at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas, also known as UNLV. Today I'll be discussing the merging of all acquisitions functions into one cohesive unit, a case study at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I started working at UNLV October 1st of 2019 and will discuss how and why my position was established and what work we have been doing since my arrival. The transition is still ongoing as these things take quite a bit of time to complete and we were slowed down by the pandemic. So I will also lay out what we will be doing to complete the merger over the coming months. I think it would be beneficial to start with a little background information to help explain who acquisition serves. The University of Nevada in Las Vegas is a doctoral granting institution with a Carnegie classification of R1 for very high research activity, an achievement received in December of 2018. UNLV was established in 1957 as a small branch college and has grown into a thriving urban research institution. The undergraduate, graduate, and professional student population has grown to over 30,000. UNLV has 6 libraries on its campuses, all of which have central acquisitions functions through the main library lead, with the exception of the law library that operates independently. In addition to LEAD and the Law Library, there's the Architectural Studies Library, the Health Sciences Library, the Music Library, and the Teacher Development and Resource Library. LEAD Library also includes a dedicated area for special collections and archives that is treated as if it were another branch library. The acquisitions unit and those with acquisitions duties are and were all part of the Collections, Access, and Discovery Division located in LEAD Library. This division is also known as CAD. This is the area that I will focus on today. So why the merge? As I was not yet part of the university libraries at UNLV, the details of the why and how the merging of acquisitions areas were gleaned from conversations from the head of CAD and the head of Continuing Resources and Collections, also known as CRAC or crack. He fondly refers to himself as the crackhead. He reports directly to the head of CAD and is the direct supervisor for my position. My position, Lead Acquisitions Librarian, is over the newly merged acquisitions unit. So why the decision to merge these duties? The head of acquisitions position was vacated sometime in or prior to 2013. At that time, there was a new head of the division hired who, as part of their job, began a top-level review of areas reporting to them. This review found that monographic acquisitions and electronic resources seemed to lack day-to-day oversight, leadership, and new knowledge in the area of acquisitions. Staff knew their job well, but were not in the position to look for workflow issues, ways to increase efficiency, or the potential automation of tasks. In the area of electronic resources, also referred to e-resources, staff had knowledge that was homegrown, and sharing, collaborating, and openness to new approaches was sometimes challenging. The new division director wanted to bring in skills, current knowledge, and leadership in these areas to support the staff in their work, to help objectively review what UNLV was doing, and to make changes and improvements in the acquisitions processes and workflows. Their goal from the beginning was to create a unified acquisitions unit with the purpose of acquiring and making accessible all resources needed for UNLV's research and teaching. Having all acquisitions functions under one umbrella made sense because it provided a single point of contact for the rest of the libraries regarding their acquisitions requests and needs. Although the workflows of physical and e-resources acquisitions may be different, there are converging points around budget management, library system use, and interaction with campus purchasing. At the time of the CAD director's initial review, there were no vacant staff positions. The division head had to work with existing structure and the roles, skills, and knowledge in the division. Because of this, they undertook a variety of measures to try and utilize existing staff by asking them to step into new roles, to learn, and to lead. There was also the ability at that time to utilize a temporary staff option as well to bring in additional staff and knowledge. However, this was only a temporary fix. In the midst of this, UNLV migrated from Millennium to Alma in late 2017. It was with the hope that moving to a new system would create an opportunity for all the staff to relearn processes and share knowledge to develop workflows together, utilizing a shared understanding of acquisitions and e-resources. This did not go entirely as planned and clarified the need for someone with a deeper knowledge and understanding of acquisitions than the current staff had. And so, according to the head of CAD, the migration reiterated our need for more day-to-day oversight, leadership, and new guidance of our acquisitions processes. In January of 2019, after some staff departures, there was finally an available open position and salary dollars to create the new role of Lead Acquisitions Librarian and allow the library to move forward with the merger and to look for someone with the knowledge and expertise in acquisitions to make the unit run more efficiently and smoothly. There were no staff currently at this time with those skills, so the search began for an external candidate. This led to me coming on board in October of 2019. I'll go into greater detail about my job and unit workflows in just a few moments. To help visualize what this change would look like, thinking about all the people involved, here's an organizational chart pre-merge. This chart only shows the staff that were impacted by the change. The boxes are color-coded to indicate classification of each employee. Red indicates an academic faculty member. Green is an administrative faculty. Dark blue is classified staff. Yellow is a temporary contracted employee, and the light blue is for the part-time student assistants. While each staff member has a wide variety of duties, I will only address here the ones that each member has or had that is related to acquisitions. The head of CRAC has the responsibility for processing the invoices for the author publishing costs, also known as APC. They also supervise the majority of staff who are assigned acquisitions duties. The electronic serials librarian was responsible for activating and troubleshooting issues for all electronic serials, as well as assisting with renewals. They were also at that time supervising the collection assessment manager. The collection assessment manager created serial orders and assisted with renewals. They and the library technician assigned to them had the task of both print and electronic standing order and serial invoice processing, which also included databases and membership invoices. They were responsible for print serial check-in, claiming, and labeling, as well as print standing order labeling. There were also 2 students that assisted with invoice processing and labeling. The catalog librarian and the library technician 2 that reported to them were responsible for receiving of standing orders. The standing orders were primarily print monographs and were treated differently than the other serials, which were mostly journals, magazines, and newspapers. The contracted acquisitions manager managed the purchasing of one-time resources, including ebooks and all physical materials. They also supervised the library technician 1 and 2 in the acquisitions unit. The library technician 1 and library technician 2 were responsible for ordering ebooks and all physical materials requested for all libraries. These 2 positions both received materials and processed invoice for them. There was also a student that aided in some of these tasks. The student also labeled catalog materials, as that was the final step before being sent to access services and one of the tasks assigned to the acquisitions unit. This chart shows the current organizational chart. The color coding is the same as the previous chart regarding the classification of staff. The temporary contracted acquisitions manager left in mid-2019 with supervision of the library technician 1 and 2, moving to the head of CRAC. The supervision of both of those positions transferred to the lead acquisitions librarian in October of 2019, along with the electronic serials librarian. I believe at this time the collection assessment manager moved out from underneath the electronic serials librarian and began directly reporting to the head of CRAC as well. The collection assessment manager's duties, specifically ordering and renewing serials, moved to the lead acquisitions librarian and electronic serials librarian so that he could focus more on analyzing and assessing the collection. The lead acquisitions librarian and the library technician 1 were both trained on the invoice processing and took over fully with this duty in December of 2019. One student position, whose primary duties were to assist with the processing of invoices, moved underneath the lead acquisitions librarian at the same time. The student position had to be rehired as the previous student had graduated, and the new student was hired in February of 2020 and is partially trained on invoice processing. The previous library technician 2 reporting to the collection assessment manager left UNLV, and in 2020 the position was rehired to assist in the gathering of usage statistics and collection assessment. And in February of 2020, the library technician 1 and the lead acquisitions librarian were both trained in the receiving of physical standing orders and immediately took over this duty. A little bit about my background and why I was chosen for this position. I have many years of library experience at several different libraries dealing with physical processing of materials, serial and standing order processing and invoicing, as well as interlibrary loan and circulation. I was a temporary technical services librarian for a while, and most recently, I came from the University of Southern Mississippi, where I was the acquisitions and collection management librarian for 7 years. While there, I also helped co-lead the technical services department. The Technical Services Department contains 3 main units: cataloging, acquisitions, and serials, and it also has preservation in there as well. The unit heads met frequently to discuss workflow and projects. I learned a great deal about all of the areas, as well as valuable information about working with other areas outside of my own. Prior to my leaving, we had just transitioned our library system platform, or LSP, to ALMA. I had been part of the implementation team. I attended numerous meetings and training sessions that exposed me to the capabilities of the new system. This extensive training and my previous work experience helped UNLV make the decision to hire me as a person to lead the restructuring of the acquisitions unit. My major job responsibilities are to oversee the acquisitions of all formats of materials for all the libraries at UNLV, with the exception of the law library. We receive physical items and process invoices, as well as do some physical processing, such as affixing call number labels. We also cancel, renew, and ensure access to e-resources, troubleshooting issues as necessary. One of my main goals for the restructuring is to improve communication between staff in my area and the entire department. Some of the prior issues were due to having 2 units performing acquisitions functions, which hamper communication and caused breakdowns of some workflows and procedures. There was also some confusion as to which department handled certain situations. This has been cleared up, as now everything runs through one unit. If there's confusion to which staff handles certain situations, it comes to me first. I make the determination and use that decision as an opportunity to work on procedures and clarify workflow. I'm currently reviewing processes and workflows to find ways to make them more efficient. I also am reviewing staff responsibilities and cross-training staff to help with both one-time and continuing resource processing. I am working to improve collaboration between the acquisitions unit and liaison librarians who have collection development responsibilities. I provide oversight of the budget, and I am the primary point of contact between the library and accounts payable. At the end of 2017, UNLV migrated from Millennium to ALMA. It appears as if many of the procedures were created for Millennium and then were continued to be used for ALMA. This is an area that I'm working on to ensure that we are utilizing the capabilities of ALMA the best that we can to ensure efficiency, as well as the increased options for automation of tasks that the system allows. I'm also working on several projects that will clean up issues related to the migration. An example would be to the order records that were set up with incorrect formats. This becomes an issue when a serial title that was set up as a one-time purchase. Each time an item is invoiced, the order must be reopened, as it automatically closes after each invoice has been paid. While updating procedures, it has become clear that in Millennium, staff had a process and followed it, but could not describe the underlying rationale or knowledge for the process to effectively translate it to the new system. I'm working with each staff member individually to find out ways to update their procedures to better work with ALMA and eliminate any duplication of tasks. These procedures also extend outside of the system and include any other task required for their job, such as filing, receiving of material, or invoice processing. My hope is that walking through this process together will help staff get a better understanding of their jobs. We're also working to update procedures for the liaisons to use when submitting orders, as we looked at ways to ensure that we are getting the information we need and can quickly order the materials requested. We have already established a new template for use for requesting ebooks, streaming media, and other physical materials. We recently finished a project that involved attaching invoices in the system to allow for easy access to previous invoices in case questions arise. This is currently only done for continuing resources, and the step was then added to the procedures. We are currently in the midst of a project to add a reporting code for each continuing resource that reflects its spend category according to the University Finance Office. A spend category example would be perpetual access, e-resource, print serial subscription, or multimedia. These spend codes are used when entering invoices into the financial system, which is currently not connected to the library system. In the future, should these two systems become connected, these codes would be necessary and would already be in each of the continuing resource titles. For now, this will allow students to assist in putting these codes on invoices, since they will just need to copy them from the records and move that duty from staff to the students. I've also been working on a project to ensure that all of the vendors that we can electronically load their invoices into Alma are set up in the system to do so. This project is almost complete, but still requires some tweaking. This should help tremendously with staff time, as many of these invoices have been entered manually in the past. I am evaluating additional vendors to help us better and more quickly acquire resources, as well as any software that may help streamline processes or work more efficiently, such as centralized ordering through programs such as Oasis. A future project we plan to work on includes the license agreement, adding those into the LSP, which it does have the capability to do. Currently, some are scanned, some are in folders on the shared drive, and the rest are hard copies in a filing cabinet in the library. Accessibility of this became an issue when we began working remotely. Another future project is to set up reports for each of the liaisons with collection development responsibilities. These reports will gather items on order that they have requested so they can better keep up with their allocations and requests. The system has the capability to email these on a regular schedule. So after the initial setup, these should require no further maintenance unless there is a fund or liaison change. To complete the last of the restructuring process, the following duties will be added to the staff in the acquisitions unit. Supervision of the student reporting to the lead acquisitions librarian will move July 1st to report to the library technician 1. Both acquisition students will be trained to receive standing orders, as well as the library technician 2. Serials claiming and serials check-in will be moved to the acquisitions unit. Both students will be trained, as well as the lead acquisitions librarian and the library technicians 1 and 2. I also assume that labeling of both the serials and standing orders will also be moving to the acquisitions unit. Both students and the library technician 2 will also be trained in standing order check-in. The APC invoicing will be moving to acquisitions, and for the moment, the plan is to keep it with the lead acquisitions librarian. There's also the possibility that entering the allocations in the LSP at the beginning of each new fiscal year will also move to the lead acquisitions librarian, although the head of CRAC will be the one to make the determination for what those allocations will be. It will be important to ensure that most of the staff in the acquisitions unit are cross-trained to ensure that there are no delays in acquiring items, and so that we can more easily continue work should there be any retirements or elimination of positions, a big unknown with our current budget situation. I also currently and will continue to utilize the students and library technicians 1 and 2 to work on e-resource tasks to maintain a sense of togetherness of these areas and of the staff. This also is a growing resource area that we are collecting in. In addition to merging the workflows, I had to integrate the people to form one cohesive acquisitions unit. There are no physical relocation of staff for this process, so many of the changes have come in the forms of how the unit communicates with one another and with the rest of the library as a whole. There was a faculty member whose main job responsibility was to work with electronic resources, 2 classified staff, and a student who worked with all aspects of one-time purchasing of physical materials or ebooks. And then we eventually hired another student. So there were 6 of us total that make up this new acquisitions unit, myself included. My personal belief is that communication and transparency will help solve a lot of the problems and works well to get people on the same page. My management style is also that of the team leader approach. We have communicated in a variety of ways. We began with face-to-face group meetings about once a month. I also conducted several face-to-face individual meetings, but most interactions were done on an unscheduled drop-in method for specific questions. I also sent group and individual emails to touch base and to keep everyone updated on news gleaned from other meetings that I attended in an effort to ensure transparency whenever possible. Changes to our communication style have come about as a result of the pandemic. We are all working from home at the moment and have been since the end of March. We are now virtually meeting once a week and utilizing the chat features that was already embedded in our email. Currently, we're using G Suite. In some ways, our communication has gotten better. Training is evolving as we utilize the Google Hangouts feature and can share our computer screens to walk through procedures. We're also using this with the student in addition to the written procedures. The software also allows us to use Google Docs and Google Sheets for collaborative work. As I was new to UNLV and had a lot to learn myself, as well as being part of my management style, I started out and continue to be very hands-on. This has allowed me to learn the processes and procedures that we are currently doing and to more easily see where things can be tweaked or made more efficient. I also have spoken with all of the people who have been doing these duties both in and out of the acquisitions unit to find out what suggestions they had for improvement. Getting this input has really helped with staff buy-in and participation. The staff really seem to want the unit to do well and have started coming to me on their own to offer suggestions for changes or improvements to processes and workflows. I also use our meetings to gather questions or concerns that they wish for me to bring to my supervisor or to other levels of administration as I report back each week. Also, what responses to those concerns were. So what were the results of the merge? A major result of the restructuring process has been an improvement in communication. Streamlining of processes, particularly of invoice processing, has already happened. The current weekly virtual meetings with all of the staff and acquisitions has allowed for more easily working through ordering problems or questions, such as who performs which duties. This has been a pleasant surprise, and I will likely continue these meetings with this frequency even when we return to the library. As social distancing will be around for quite a while longer, we may also continue to use the virtual meetings and collaborations, which will also eliminate the need for having to look for a meeting room. New ideas have come from our remote work, and we are currently looking for ways to create video instructions for liaisons to help us save time in their training. Currently, we conduct training sessions for ordering in our main book vendor system in person. These will be more convenient for liaisons, and they can review videos on their own time and just ask questions if needed. Because the staff have been so responsive, I feel confident approaching them with big questions such as, what would make your work easier? Or how do you think we should handle this situation? And this has led to enthusiasm to suggest changes. They have told me they feel like they're being heard. I also check in frequently to ensure that any changes that we have already made are going well, and that staff generally are okay, especially during these stressful times. Everyone has been patient and flexible and have been willing to contribute ideas to making the unit and workflows better. We would not have made the progress we have made without the outstanding staff. I treat them as a team, as that was my goal for having these areas come together to create one acquisitions team. Being hands-on, asking questions, and getting input has more easily allowed me to see areas where processes are working well, and areas that we can improve upon. Learning the new duties that we have taken on and the ones coming will also help me to establish a merged process for similar tasks. It is my hope that this will allow for more efficiency and cut down on mistakes if there are similar steps in each of the processes. I am moving around duties to give the more routine task to the students in order to free up staff time to perform the higher level task. I'm also spreading out e-resource projects to the classified staff and students to help further merge these areas and get the much needed help for the electronic serials librarian, whose area has grown and continues to grow tremendously. While we have a ways to go to get these all of these steps completed and complete our transition, as we were delayed with the virus, I think with the work that we have done and the plans for the future, that we are well on our way to having all of the acquisitions functions merged into one cohesive unit. And I wanted to make a little note here that my hands-on approach and learning all of the new tasks is very time consuming. I do back off a little bit after we have established new processes, and I and my staff have learned all of the steps to be able to do these. However, letting the staff see that I don't mind getting my hands dirty, I'm willing to learn with them, and I also have set myself up as a backup for these tasks, has really helped me gain respect from them and quite a bit of buy-in for all the new work that is coming and going to them. It is worth it. If managers have time to do this step, it really is worth it for a variety of reasons. Now I can take any questions that you all might have. I am also happy to discuss in more detail any of the projects that we are working on as well.
I'm not seeing any questions come up in the chat box. Let's see. Anyone have any questions for Jennifer? Okay, so I'm going, oh, here we go. Let me hold on one second. Were there any changes in workflows with the cataloging department?
So we took over the receiving of the standing orders from cataloging. They took that opportunity to restructure a little bit. Other than that, because I am new, I have stepped in as contact person on questions that relate to like streaming media, or any potential changes of processes. Particularly now we're trying to decide how do we set up, receiving new materials, going back and forth. So I am another layer in there that helps make that decision. But beyond their own restructuring for different reasons, it was only removing those duties from cataloging.
And next question is, how is the workflow working for you between acquisition staff and cataloging staff?
So right now, I think we still have a little ways to go here. Sometimes I will meet with the head of cataloging, and we will discuss issues that I bring from the staff, and we discuss workflows and walk through all that process. But as far as all the staff together, right now they're going directly through the heads of the areas. So I think that an opportunity for us in the future would be to open up those lines a little bit, to have a little bit better communication, because right now it's all funneling through us, which is fine, and we're resolving issues, but I would like for it to be a little bit more team-based, I think.
Is there any cataloging on receipt done by the acquisition staff?
We have shelf-ready materials. So I think that there is some small amount of, possibly copy cataloging there, but it's more verifying that the information is correct. And right now, everything, I think previously there had been some there, but it is not currently. It has moved all back to cataloging prior to my arrival.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. We have about a couple more minutes. If there's any questions for both presenters, if you thought of something for Joy or Jennifer, now's the time. Otherwise, it is close to 1 o'clock, and this is scheduled to go till 1. But like I said, we can allow for a couple more questions if there's something that you truly desire an answer to. Oh, we have one question. Anything? Okay, then. Thank you so much for attending this ACRL Technical Services Interest Group. Again, this will be recorded and then be sent out and posted for ACRL. So thank you again and have a wonderful day.